everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. We are going to be talking all about my 2025, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying that, 2025 TBR. A very big trend in the booktube community around this time of year is to do like a 25 in 2025. But as we continue to age and get older and as the years passed, it used to be cute when it was like 10 books to read in 2010, but like, baby, it's 2025 right now. And as a girly who can only read about like 20 to 40 books a year, if I said I'm gonna read 25 books in 2025, that would basically be my entire reading for the whole year. So I'm just gonna tell you the books that I wanna read next year. I have about 10 in total, so I guess 10 books I wanna read in 2025. But let's just get into it. I wanna talk about these books. I'm like just foaming at the mouth to talk to you about them because some of these books have absolutely consumed me lately, and some of these series have consumed me lately. And let's just start off with the one that is the biggest consumption at this point. That is the Stormlight Archive. This is my beloved mass market paperback version of Words of Radiance that I'm rereading right now. You guys, if you haven't been watching my vlogs, if you haven't been in the fantasy universe at all, if you don't know what's going on in the fantasy genre, Brandon Sanderson just released Wind and Truth today, which is the 5th book in the Stormlight Archive. I have read up through Oathbringer, and crazy me decided to do an entire reread of the Stormlight Archive leading up unto Wind and Truth, the 5th one. And guess what? She's only on Words of Radiance, so it's going great so far. Earlier this year, when I restarted the Stormlight Archive reread, oh my god, it was so good on the reread. This series slapped the first time I read it, but like the reread, going back through, the foreshadowing is huge, and there are so many things that I'm just like, how did I not notice that before? How did I not pick up on that? And I just feel like I'm understanding the world so much better on the reread. All in all, including all of these books in one category, the goal for next year is to just do an entire Stormlight Archive reread slash read, because I still have to read Rhythm and Wind and Truth. But going on top of that, the second book or series that I want to talk about is Mistborn. You guys, my claws are entrenched in the Cosmere, and it is all I want to do is read the entire thing, okay? I want to finish my rereads of Stormlight Archive, and I want to reread Mistborn and finish the first completed trilogy. To be completely honest with you, all I want to do is just read the Cosmere. That's it. Like, the rest of the books I'm about to talk to you about, yeah, I want to read them, but the Cosmere. But the Cosmere. Like, how can I continue reading anything else without finishing the entire Cosmere? I can't. It's like binge watching a show and like not being able to watch anything else except that for the entirety of the thing until you finish the show. It's like me watching Love Island. Like, I can't move on until I finish Love Island. And that's how I'm currently feeling. I just want to read Stormlight Archive. I want to read Mistborn. I want to read the entire Cosmere, and just like, I want to know. I want to know what's going on. These are like some of my favorite characters I've ever read. I am so entrenched into this series and in Brandon Sanderson's books in general. He is the fantasy author of our modern time. I swear to God, he's gonna go down with some of the greats like George R. R. Martin, Robert Jordan, and Robin Hobb. Like, he is outstanding, and that's all I want to do. Okay, I just think I spent 5 minutes talking about these two book series, but these are the first two in this video, and this is my main priority. If you don't know what the Stormlight Archive and the Cosmere in general is, basically Brandon Sanderson has created this entire solar system of worlds that each book series has their own world in the Cosmere, and these worlds are all interconnected throughout the series, and the Stormlight Archive is the book that is bringing all of these worlds kind of together. And as we progress throughout the Stormlight Archive, you're getting more hints of other worlds and like interconnectedness from the Cosmere. So Mistborn is kind of like an elemental magic where you can control magic through metals and stuff. Then the Stormlight Archive is more of a at-large war between two different groups of of people, and you're just following a handful of main characters. They're multi-POV novels, and it's just, I can't even, there's nothing to say except positive, amazing things about all these. Brandon Sanderson books have always been rated 5 stars by me, and like genuinely cannot get enough of these books. Moving on to other books that you may be interested in. You know what? There's a lot of series that I want to read in 2025, and I'm just talking all about the singular series as one book. So I hope that makes sense. The third series that I really want to get to in 2025 is Fourth Wing / Iron Flame. Now, I've read Fourth Wing before, but I want to do a reread leading up to Onyx Storm because Onyx Storm releases in January. Baby, I gotta get on this book like literally right now. Literally right now I need to start reading it. Well, I put it off for so long because it had such mixed reviews. Now that we're getting closer to the release of Onyx Storm, people are bantering me and baiting me to read Iron Flame. Like, is Iron Flame a 2025 goal? No, it's honestly more of a December 2024 goal, but Onyx Storm is a 2025 goal for sure because it doesn't come out until January. So if you don't know what Fourth Wing is about, you probably do because you're watching this channel, but essentially it's about our main character, Violet Sorrengail, who goes to this school to learn to become a dragon rider. She falls in love with like the hot older student in this school, and like all about learning to ride dragons. You're going to this school, there's like a dark academia vibe. The stakes are really high. Writing isn't great in these books, but at the same time, it's just a fun time. And like, I feel like these are really fun books to read in between something super serious like the Stormlight Archive. Or if I just want like a fun little time that's like not super dense, these books are like super quick to read and easy to read. And I definitely want to like know the hype because everyone in my family, everyone, like all of my friends are reading these books. So I definitely want to get to these for sure in 2025 and be in on the hype with everyone. You know what I mean? Next book series that I'm honestly ashamed that I haven't finished this book series yet. Like genuinely, it's sad. But I know that there's absolutely no way I can finish these books by the end of the year because I'm so entrenched into the Cosme right now, but it would be really, really great if I could finish these in 2025. That's Throne of Glass. How have I not read this book series yet? It's not even that I haven't even read the book series. I've read up through Queen of Shadows, but I haven't gone on. Earlier this year, I decided to do a reread of this series of what I've read so far, and I only got up through Heir of Fire, but I have heard that the last half of these series, Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, and Kingdom of Ash, are some of the best in the series. Not Tower of Dawn. Heard that one could be a slog, but I've heard Empire of Storms and Kingdom of Ash are insane, so I definitely want to get to these in 2025, and I feel so ashamed putting these on this. Like, I feel ashamed even telling you that I haven't finished the book series yet. So brief synopsis of Throne of Glass. We're following our main character, Selena Sardathian. She is an assassin, and you're kind of going on this big epic journey with her as she uncovers different secrets about the world that she lives in, the people that she is surrounding herself with, and you're following this huge character arc of her throughout this series. It's very, very beautiful, captivating, and it's been fun to follow along. So I feel like Queen of Shadows was one of the strongest in the series that I've read so far, and I've just heard great things about the rest of these. If you're interested in my thoughts on other books in this series, I used to do a dedicated reading vlog reading each of these with like a bunch of spoilers. So if you have read those before and know the spoilers, or just like want a fun time and want to watch me talking about Throne of Glass, I've made a reading vlog every single book up through Queen of Shadows that I can leave the playlist link down below if you're interested. Those are some pretty old videos too, so they might not be the most like professional, polished, that kind of stuff. I mean, are my videos polished, professional? No. You know what? We were just learning YouTube at that point. Okay, continuing on with series, because Girly is a big series reader, and that's pretty much all I enjoy reading, to be quite honest with you. The next series that I want to get to in 2025, would love to finish it, but considering I have all these other books on my TBR and I only read about, 20 to 40 books a year, we'll see. Okay, we'll see. I would really like to get to these, at least the next one in this series. That is the Kindred's Curse saga, or the second one is Glow of the Everflame. I read Spark of the Everflame earlier this year. Absolutely loved it. Oh gosh, I'm just like a chronic read the first book in the series and then just like stop for no reason at all. And it's so terrible. I actually tried to be so much better about it this year, and I made some progress, but not like extreme progress. Glow Glow of the Everflame is the second book in the Kindred's Curse saga. This is an epic fantasy romance, is I feel like the best genre that I can describe it. In this book, you are following our main character, Diem, who is like an apprentice healer. And in this world, there you have both humans and then you have these kind of like magical beings called the Descendants, who are said to have come from like some higher power that like came down to this planet, and they have like special abilities and whatnot. So she is a healer, and she ends up interacting with one of the Descendants who's like really tall and hot, and then they end up falling in love. Well, they haven't really like fallen in love yet. It was kind of like an enemies to lovers in the first book, but the series has a really well-established fantasy plot that was super intriguing and interesting to read in Spark of the Everflame, and I'm really interested to see where the series is gonna go. When I had read this first initial book, I definitely wasn't satiated by the first novel. Like, I felt like I needed to continue on to keep learning about the series in general and the world in general, but yet for some reason I got distracted and read something else. Story of my life. But I did really enjoy the first book in the series. I heard Glow is even better than the first book, and I gave the first book 4.5 stars. So I would love to continue on with the Kindred's Curse saga. I absolutely love this series, and I thought it was one of the best standout fantasy romance series I've ever read. Next book or series that I would really love to get to in 2025. I feel ashamed to say this one as well, but this one is Royal Assassin, which is book 2 in the Farseer trilogy. How did I read Assassin's Apprentice and not move on yet? I don't know. I gave the first book 5 stars. Do you see a pattern here? I have a chronic problem of not continuing on in series. Royal Assassin is the second book in the Farseer trilogy, like I said. This book series follows our main character, Fitz, and it is a epic fantasy series covering Fitz's pretty much entire existence. You start off in Assassin's Apprentice when he is a very young teenager, preteen child, and you're kind of following him on his, like, literally learning about him and where he came from and his roots. So my husband Reed is a huge fantasy reader, and he said that the Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is like the Ship of Magic, the Mad Ship, and then another one, is the best trilogy, fantasy trilogy he's ever read his entire life. And he's literally read like every major fantasy book out there. So with that kind of an accolade, I absolutely need to continue on. Absolutely need to keep going with this book series. I do remember a little bit of Assassin's Apprentice, but would this require a reread? Probably. I feel like I'm just setting myself back when I don't continue on into series. Like, it's honestly so bad. Like, why am I rereading the entire Stormlight Archive when it took me like 3 years to do the first 3 books in that series in the first place? We listen and we don't judge, okay? So would absolutely love to continue on with Royal Assassin and hopefully get through a handful of these books next year if I have the time. And next book or book series that I want to get to in 2024 is the continuation of the Red Rising series. Okay, here's where I'm making up for it for the lack of continuing on into series. I read Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star this year. I completed a full trilogy within 1 year, so I am very proud of myself with that, but we still have more books to go in the Red Rising series. So I am on Iron Gold right now, which is the 4th book, and we kind of have like turned a new chapter. Like, the initial trilogy definitely ended on a close, and we have a major time jump, and we are starting over with a completely new plot and place for these characters to go. So the Red Rising series in general, you really should go into this not knowing much, but like, very brief synopsis. You're following your main character, Darrow, who is a red in a world where humans have been genetically modified to basically represent different colors. Red is essentially like the lowest on the totem pole, and everything he'd known about his world gets completely flipped on its head, and he ends up finding himself in this like epic like uprising, you know, for the government and for this like interplanetary government system. The initial trilogy is essentially starting like an intergalactic war. It is so incredible. It is so captivating, and the writing style is so different from any other book I've ever read. Pierce Brown really knows how to like drive a plot forward, and his writing can be quite jumpy at times, but it's still so captivating and like, oh my God, you're literally having an intergalactic war in your mind. It's amazing. And I wish we could have this as a TV show or a movie or something because it's actually insane. I have rated every single one of these at least a 4-star or higher, have loved it, love the characters, I love the plot, and I just can't wait to see where this series goes. So would love to get to the rest of those books in 2025. Next book that I have on my 2025 TBR, honestly, I don't even think there's any way I'm gonna get to this, but like, we're just putting it on as a hopeful, okay? And that's Empire of the Vampires by Jay Kristoff. I've wanted to read this book ever since it came out. I've heard incredible things. I feel like BookTube raves about it. I've just heard that this book series is so captivating and like just the vibes, like the vampire vibes are there. And I just haven't gotten to it yet, namely because it's almost 700 pages long and Girlie's got other 700-page books she's got to be reading. Honestly, I don't know what Empire of the Vampire is about. This book is by Jay Kristoff. I know there's a second book in this series and I think you're just following a vampire. I don't know if there's romance. I think it's more heavily based on the fantasy than anything, and like your main character's a vampire, and I think that's honestly all I want to know. But I feel like everyone who has read this on BookTube has absolutely loved it and enjoyed it, and I have really close friends who are obsessed with Jay Kristoff and this series in general. I would really love to get to it because I just feel like the vibes are incredible and like, I don't know, would be fun to read about a vampire. Very much enjoy reading about vampires in general. So I gotta say, this is lower on the TBR list than everything else I've already mentioned, but would be cool to get to if I'm in the mood for it. Next book that I would love to get to in 2025 is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. I have only heard amazing things about this as well. A lot of my really close friends on BookTube here have read it and loved it. Every single time I hear this book being talked about or referenced or something, it's only been in the highest regard. I don't even know what this is about, to be honest. I really have no idea. Literally on the back it says the Poppy Wars darkness meets the last Airbenders elemental magic. Son, I'm sold. Elemental magic is so fun. This is like a standalone epic fantasy, which is super unique, but I have heard that it is just outstanding and people love this book so much. So I would really love to get to it in 2025 and being on the hype with my BookTube friends. Last two books I have are actually two literary fiction books. I am someone who really loves a good literary fiction when I'm in the mood for it. And this year was like a very litfic inspiring year for me with the release of that 100 best books of the 21st century from the New York Times list. My husband Reed really got into that list and has read multiple books from that list so far, and he has said that he has read some of the best books that he's ever read in his life. From that, the first one and the one he talks about the most is The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. So this is kind of like a historical fiction, and it centers around two Jewish cousins who are living in Brooklyn in 1939 during the eve of World War II. The premise of this book follows these two cousins as they are entering into the comic book industry, a very unique thing to talk about in relation to World War II, in my opinion. But the interesting thing about this book, and I think the reason why Reed loved this book so much, is because it talked about the nuance of what makes art good and why do we classify certain art as above other art? Like, why can't comic books be classified as beautiful, amazing art? So it's kind of breaking down that discussion, but then also at the same time, Reed has said that this writing style of this book is unbelievable. He said it's like unlike anything he has read in a very long time. He's a huge fantasy reader, by the way. Like all of the books I just talked about, he's read like every single one of them with the exception of Fourth Wing. But he loved the writing style of this book. He thought it was so unique. The sentence structure was beautiful. He just said that this is probably one of the best books he's ever read, and it's probably one of his favorite books that he's read this year by far. It's a huge book and the writing is very small. But with that kind of praise for this book, I feel like I really want to give this a try. He literally read at least like, I don't know, 7 books from that New York Times list, and he said that this one was his favorite that he's read so far. So he talks about it all the time too. So I really would love to get to this one if I can find the time. And last book that I would really love to get to in 2025 is another one that's recommended by my family members. And this one was recommended by my sister, and that is Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. My sister, this one goes out to you. You bug me about reading this book every single time. And girl, I'm gonna read it, okay? I'm gonna read it. It's on the TBR. Anthony Doerr was the author who wrote All the Light We Cannot See. And unfortunately, I did not love that book when I read it at the time. I read it at the wrong time in my life. I was not in the mood for a World War II fiction, and it just wasn't for me. It was not bad by any means. It was just like the wrong time to read it. But this book sounds extremely different from that. What I know about this book is that it is a multi-POV book following a handful of different characters, and all of the storylines somehow cross within this magical cloud cuckoo land. I really don't want to know more than that because I think the concept sounds super interesting and I don't want to spoil it too much for myself. But my sisters has said this is one of her favorite books of all time. She thought it was so thought-provoking and insightful and beautiful and just really, really something to sink your teeth into. And she just loved this story so much. I would really, really love to get to this book as well. Okay, and then one last book. This is a release that's gonna come out in 2025, but it is the second book in the When the Moon Hatched series. I can't remember what the series is called off the top of my head. But When the Moon Hatched was by far my favorite fantasy romance that I read in 2024. And the second book is scheduled to come out, I think in like October of 2025 or something like that. Like it's not gonna be till the fall of 2025, but you know, I'm gonna be picking that book up and reading it immediately because I loved When the Moon Hatched. I thought it was so good. It was another like epic fantasy romance where huge focus was on the fantasy rather than the romance, which is like my favorite kind of fantasy romance. The world was insane. There was dragons, there was great romance, and it was just so fun to read. And I felt like the concept of the world in When the Moon Hatched was so cool and unique, and I really felt like it was like this big epic fantasy world that she had built in her mind. So I will definitely be getting to that book as well. I have no idea what that book is called, and I honestly can't remember. Moonfall, it's the Moonfall series. That's what it is. Book 2 in the Moonfall series, whatever that book is going to be called, and whenever it comes out in 2025, that is on my list. Absolutely. All right, everyone, so that completes my 2025 TBR. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave some books that you are excited to read in 2025 down below because I would love to hear what you guys are reading. I know I've talked a lot about these books like over and over and over again, but I am definitely the type of person who I don't know, I just find my favorite books and then I just want to read all of them all the time. You know what I mean? So if you've made it this far into this video, leave like a calendar emoji or something to represent 2025. And I will see you guys in my next video. Peace and love, everyone. Bye.